When Marvin lost his wife at 69, everyone around him gave the same advice. You're still young enough to find someone new. It sounded comforting, logical even. After all, no one wants to imagine their golden years unfolding in solitude. So after 2 years, Marvin started dating again. He met someone kind, gentle, easy to talk to. They shared meals, laughter, long walks, but slowly, almost silently, something began to shift. The quiet joy Marvin had discovered in his solitude began to slip away. His routines changed, his sleep became restless. Small disagreements grew into tension, and for the first time in years, Marvin didn't feel companionship. He felt pressure. Eventually, he stepped back. He chose to be alone again. And he said something I'll never forget. I didn't feel lonely when I was by myself. I felt lonely when I had to lose myself just to keep someone else happy. We live in a world that celebrates romance, that elevates long-term partnerships as the gold standard of fulfillment. And for many, those relationships bring deep meaning and comfort. But here's a truth that rarely gets spoken aloud. For some, especially after the age of 65, choosing to remain single isn't a sad ending, it's a wise beginning. It's not about giving up on love, it's about choosing peace, choosing rest, choosing yourself. Because being alone isn't the same as being lonely. It can mean freedom, it can mean stability, it can mean waking up each day without having to compromise, without the tension of bending who you are just to keep the peace. For many older adults, this choice, this intentional solitude, is the very thing that allows them to thrive. So let's gently walk through 7 quiet but powerful truths, each one a reason why staying single later in life might not only be better, it might be the best thing you do for your health, your happiness, and your heart. Stay with me to the end, because the final insight may be the one you've quietly felt for years, but never found the words to explain. For most of our lives, relationships are full of movement, compromise, excitement, discovery, but something shifts after 65. Energy is different, patience is different, and what once felt like a small disagreement can suddenly echo inside you for days. You notice your nervous system holds on to tension longer. A raised voice, a passive-aggressive comment, even a misinterpreted glance. It doesn't just pass through you anymore, it stays. Many older adults quietly come to a realization they never expected. It's not the absence of a partner that makes them feel alone. It's the emotional stress of conflict that wears them down. Even the healthiest relationships come with friction. Different routines, different ways of solving problems, different emotional languages. And after a certain age, your nervous system doesn't want to negotiate anymore. It wants peace. I remember Edith, a 73-year-old widow who'd spent 10 years living alone before opening her heart again. At first, the companionship was lovely. Meals shared, long walks, soft conversations. But soon, the little things became heavy. He criticized her daily rhythm. She felt crowded by constant calls. What once felt exciting began to feel like surveillance. And every disagreement, no matter how minor, reopened wounds she thought had healed. 6 months later, she ended the relationship, and what she said has stayed with me ever since. I didn't realize how much stress I'd accepted until the silence returned, and I finally slept. This is the part that isn't talked about enough. For some people, peace is more nourishing than partnership. When you reach a certain age, emotional weight doesn't roll off like it used to. It settles. And if a relationship adds more pressure than ease, more exhaustion than joy, staying single becomes not just a preference, but a form of self-care, Because at this stage in life, you're no longer chasing sparks. You're protecting your flame. And there's another truth that begins to surface, one that rarely makes it into the conversations about love and aging. It's the quiet weight of financial entanglement. Because while love may be blind, money sees everything. At 30 or 40, sharing resources might feel like an adventure, a joint future you're building together. But after 65, your finances are no longer a sandbox. They're a structure you've spent decades protecting. Retirement savings, pensions, healthcare plans, inheritances, all of it becomes more fragile, more critical, and more vulnerable to disruption. You see, bringing someone new into your life isn't just about dinner dates and Sunday strolls. It's about blending two financial ecosystems. And the moment that happens, choices start getting more complicated. Who pays for what? Will this affect your Social Security benefits? What happens if one person needs care before the other? And what about your children, who may suddenly see their legacy threatened by someone they barely know? Roger, a 68-year-old grandfather from Arizona, thought he had it all figured out. After years of responsible saving, he felt ready to share his golden years with someone new. He met a woman he truly cared for, kind, bright, full of stories. But within months of moving in together, things began to shift. Shared expenses became lopsided. He started covering more than his share. Dinners, home repairs, even a cruise she wanted to take. And slowly, his savings started thinning. When he finally brought it up, the conversation turned sour. What he thought was generosity began to feel like quiet resentment, and it broke something he couldn't get back. What people don't realize is that financial stress in later life feels different. It's not just about dollars. It's about safety. It's about autonomy. It's about knowing that you can take care of yourself without depending on anyone else. And for many, staying single becomes the cleanest way to preserve that independence. Because sometimes protecting your peace means protecting your bank account too. But it's not just the finances that change when someone new walks into your life. It's your rhythm, your sacred, quiet rhythm that's taken years to build. You see, one of the most underrated luxuries of aging is having control over your time. The morning tea brewed just the way you like it. The exact chair you sit in to read. The silence in the kitchen at 6 a.m. or the late night walks around your block. These aren't just habits, they're anchors. They hold your days in place, especially when everything else around you is changing. Your health, your energy, your circle of friends. Now imagine someone else entering that space. They like the TV on in the morning, they don't drink tea, they rearrange the dishes in your cabinets and play music during dinner. And suddenly, without meaning to, your calm becomes noise. Your routine becomes negotiation. Louise, a 70-year-old widow, had spent more than a decade living on her own. Her mornings started with soft music, quiet journaling, and time in the garden. When she began dating again, she welcomed the company. She even felt young again. Until she didn't. Her partner was loud, impulsive, always changing plans. At first it was charming, then it became exhausting. She told me, "I didn't mind being alone. What I minded was losing the quiet I had waited years to earn." Because personal space isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's being able to move through your day without permission, without explanation. It's the freedom to feel exactly how you feel without adjusting to someone else's needs, moods, or preferences. And that's the truth so few talk about. Being single in your 60s, 70s, or 80s isn't lonely when your life is full of things you truly enjoy. If anything, it's the opposite. It's peaceful, it's stable, it's deeply yours. So when someone asks why you haven't settled down again, maybe the answer isn't because no one asked. Maybe it's because you finally stopped needing to be rescued from a life you actually love. And just when you think companionship might be worth a compromise, life often throws in one more curve. It's the quiet reality most don't want to talk about, but everyone over 65 knows deep down. When you welcome someone into your later years, you're also welcoming the possibility of becoming a caregiver. Not someday. Sometimes, very soon. You meet someone, you connect, you laugh, you share stories over dinner, but then one of you gets sick. Maybe it starts with a limp, maybe memory slips, or maybe it's something more sudden, a fall, a diagnosis, a shift in energy that doesn't bounce back. And without even realizing it, what started as a romantic connection turns into full-time responsibility. You're now managing medications, helping them in and out of bed, canceling your plans to drive them to appointments, cooking, cleaning, assisting with everything you once did just for yourself. And slowly the partnership becomes caretaking. The companionship becomes obligation. And your own well-being, it slips into second place. That's what happened to George. He was 76 when he met Ruth. They bonded over faith, over music, over the small joys of being alive. But within a year, Ruth's mobility declined. George went from morning walks to managing her every need. He stopped going to his community center, gave up weekend fishing, and found himself waking 3 times a night to help her reposition. He told me quietly, "I love her, but I've lost myself." And here's what's even more difficult. Many seniors who become caregivers also begin to suffer silently. They don't want to admit they're tired. They don't want to sound selfish, but caregiving at that stage of life can wear down even the strongest hearts. It increases the risk of depression, high blood pressure, and emotional burnout. This isn't to say that loving someone means walking away when things get hard, but it is to say when you're already managing your own aging body, your own energy and peace, taking on the health decline of another isn't always an act of love. Sometimes it's a loss of self-preservation. And that's why staying single, staying in your own care on your own terms, can be the most powerful act of wisdom there is. But even if you manage to maintain your energy, protect your peace, and sidestep the challenges of caregiving, there's another storm that often brews just outside the front door. One that doesn't come from your partner, but from the people who've known you the longest. Your family. It starts quietly. A pause in a phone call. A delayed response when you mention a new companion. A strange tension at family gatherings that wasn't there before. Suddenly, you're not just making decisions for yourself. You're fielding opinions, navigating emotions, managing expectations. Because when a new relationship enters your life, it doesn't just affect you. It ripples out to your children, your grandchildren, your legacy. Martha knows exactly how that feels. At 66, after years of widowhood, she met someone who made her laugh again. They spent quiet mornings sipping coffee, walking through bookstores, rediscovering joy. But when she told her sons about him, the room fell silent. They worried he'd change her will. They questioned his intentions. They wondered if she was thinking clearly. And what started as happiness slowly turned into guilt. Phone calls became colder, visits became shorter, and eventually Martha made the most heartbreaking decision of all. She ended the relationship just to keep peace with her family. She told me, "I felt like I was being punished for wanting to live again." And it's not just emotion that complicates things. Legal issues creep in too. A new partner might unintentionally inherit part of your estate. Cohabitation can affect pensions, Social Security benefits, or insurance coverage. Wills get contested, assets get questioned, and sometimes families fracture, not after you're gone, but while you're still here, watching it unfold. This is why some seniors choose to stay single, not because they fear love, but because they've spent decades building trust with their children, nurturing bonds with their grandchildren, and protecting the foundation of their family. And the thought of those relationships being strained by confusion, jealousy, or fear is a risk they are not willing to take. Solitude becomes a way of preserving what matters most: peace with your family, clarity in your finances, harmony in your home. Because sometimes the quiet strength of staying single is not about avoiding love. It's about honoring every form of love that you've worked your whole life to protect. And even if no one objects, even if your finances stay untouched and your children offer nothing but support, there's still a quieter shift that often goes unnoticed. A change that sneaks in not through conflict or crisis, but through something far more subtle: compromise. At first, it seems harmless. You skip your morning walk because your partner likes to sleep in. You delay that weekend trip because they don't enjoy traveling. You give up the guest room to make space for their hobbies, or stop listening to your favorite radio show because they find it too loud. But over time, those small adjustments pile up, and one day you realize you're living someone else's rhythm instead of your own. Walter, 74, never expected this. After retiring, he was excited to finally have the freedom to roam. He dreamed of long train rides across the country, visiting friends he hadn't seen in decades. But when he met someone special, those dreams slowly faded. She preferred quiet weekends at home. She didn't like flying. And before he knew it, Walter's calendar began filling with her needs instead of his own. He told me, I wasn't mad at her, I was mad at myself for letting my world get smaller. This is the part of relationships that no one warns you about. Not the fights, not the finances, but the way intimacy, beautiful as it is, sometimes demands space. And when you don't protect it, your independence begins to erode. Not all at once, but inch by inch, until you look up and realize you've built your days around someone else's preferences. And here's the thing, that kind of compromise might feel normal when you're 30 or 40, when life is long and flexible, but at 70 or 80, your time becomes sacred. Your space becomes sanctuary. And your freedom, the quiet ability to eat what you want, sleep when you want, travel when you want, that becomes everything. Choosing to stay single means keeping that freedom intact. It means designing your day, your space, your life on your own terms. You can still love deeply, still connect meaningfully, still share laughter and stories, but you do it with your time still in your hands. And for many, that's not loneliness. That's liberation. And perhaps the most quietly painful part of aging isn't the solitude itself. It's the pressure to escape it. Society doesn't like silence. It doesn't like stillness. It tells us that partnership is the prize, and being alone means you must have missed something. That if you're single past 65, it's because no one chose you, or you didn't try hard enough, or you gave up on love. That narrative, repeated often enough, begins to echo inside your own thoughts. So, what do many people do? They settle, they lower their standards, they talk themselves into something that doesn't quite feel right just to feel less alone, and they hope, maybe this is good enough, maybe I don't need joy, maybe comfort will do. But deep down, there's a quiet knowing. Barbara, 69, lived through that knowing. She met a man on a senior dating app. He was kind, respectful, ready for commitment, but something was missing. He didn't make her laugh. He didn't really see her. Still, she said yes. Not because it felt like love, but because she didn't want to be the last one single at the dinner table. 6 months later, she felt more alone sitting beside him than she ever did sitting by herself. This is the cost of fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of time slipping away. Fear that love will never come again. But fear is a terrible architect. It builds houses with thin walls and fragile doors, where joy doesn't stay long. Here's the truth that so few people say out loud. Being single after 65 isn't always a failure. Sometimes it's a choice made in strength, a decision born not from bitterness, but from clarity. It's a choice to live fully without pretending, to prioritize truth over tradition, to wait if love ever comes again, not out of desperation, but from abundance. And if love never comes, you still have yourselves, your mornings untouched, your evenings peaceful, your spirit undiluted. You learn to enjoy your own company, to laugh out loud at your own thoughts, to find adventure in a solo train ride or meaning in a quiet walk. You realize that solitude isn't the enemy. It's the space where your soul can finally breathe. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is look at your life, your heart, your future, and say, this is enough. I am enough. So tonight, as the world quiets down and you sit with your own thoughts, I invite you to ask yourself the one question that truly matters. Are you living in a way that honors your peace? Not what others expect, not what society says you should want, but what you need, what helps you breathe easier, what lets your shoulders drop, what allows your heart to rest, not race. Because at this stage in life, your time is sacred, your energy is not infinite, and your joy is no longer something you should postpone for someone else's comfort. The truth is, there's no perfect formula for aging, no one-size-fits-all path. But if you find yourself sleeping better in your own bed, smiling more in your own space, feeling lighter when your schedule is only yours to fill, then maybe, just maybe, you're not missing anything at all. Maybe you're finally finding it, finding rhythm in your routine, confidence in your choices, purpose in your quiet, and wholeness in the life you've built, exactly as you are. If love comes again, let it come because it adds light, not because you were afraid of the dark. And if it does, you've already proven you know how to stand on your own, with grace, with strength, with unwavering dignity. Because sometimes the greatest form of love isn't something we wait for, it's something we choose to give ourselves. So, here's to the ones who wake up alone, but not lonely, who dine at quiet tables and still feel full, who choose peace over pressure, clarity over chaos, and truth over tradition. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are not too late. You are exactly where you're meant to be. And if this message spoke to your heart, let me know in the comments below. Share one thing you've learned about yourself in this season of life. I read every word. I always do. And if you think someone else needs to hear this, don't hesitate to share it with them, because sometimes the smallest reminder that you are allowed to live life your way is the most powerful gift of all. This is your time, your path, and your peace. Protect it, nourish it, and walk it with pride. We'll see you in the next video.